The house where Alice grew up was a place of deep silence and heavy velvet curtains. Light was permitted, but only in polite, manageable slivers that did little to disturb the shadows. Her father was an elder in their church, a man whose spine seemed forged from the Old Testament, and whose love was a currency earned through perfect compliance. Her mother, a woman whose own dreams had been folded away like old linens, policed the home with an anxious tenderness, her every glance a measure of Alice's obedience. Their world was a fortress of doctrine, its walls built from scripture and tradition. Inside was God's order, outside was chaos and sin. Alice's role as a daughter was simple: to be a vessel of purity, to learn the arts of a godly home, and to one day submit to a husband chosen from within their walls. Her future was a well-tended, walled garden. But Alice had a secret, ravenous hunger. At night, when the house was blanketed in its pious quiet, she would read. Not the approved devotionals, but books scavenged from the town library, hidden beneath her mattress. Books on physics and astronomy. She didn't just want to live in God's world, she wanted to understand its mechanics, to learn the language of its stars. The thought of college was a forbidden, burning star in the dark constellation of her mind. The day she spoke of it, the silence in the dining room became a physical weight. College? Her father repeated, the word tasting like blasphemy. He set down his fork with a heavy finality. Your education is here. Your purpose is here. Ambition is the devil's whisper to a woman, Alice. It tells her she is not enough as God made her. Her mother's face was a mask of pained disappointment. We only want to protect your soul, my love, she whispered, but it sounded like a threat. That night, the angst that had been a low hum in Alice's blood became a scream. The walls of her room, of her life, felt like they were shrinking, the air growing thin, in a desperate, late-night search for something, anything else. She stumbled into a corner of the internet she had never seen before, a forum for seekers. The posts spoke of spiritual sovereignty and mental alchemy. And there she found it, a video link to a text called The Declaration of Spiritual Sovereignty. She clicked. Her heart pounding, a calm, steady voice began to speak, and the words were not a whisper, but a key turning in a lock rusted shut for generations.
We hold this truth to be self-evident, that our inherent worth as a soul is absolute, unconditional, and eternal. It is not granted by priest or politician, not measured by wealth or productivity.
Alice felt a crack form in the fortress of her upbringing. The words were a direct refutation of everything she had ever been taught, that her worth was conditional on her purity, her obedience, her submission.
We recognize that the ultimate authority over our inner world, our thoughts, our beliefs, and our state of being resides wholly within us. We are the sole sovereigns of our inner kingdom.
A sob escaped her lips. The authority wasn't her father's. It wasn't the church's. It was hers. The thought was so terrifying, so liberating it made her dizzy. She devoured the rest, the releases, a litany of every invisible chain that had ever bound her. The commitments, a blueprint for a life she hadn't dared to imagine. For weeks, the declaration became her secret scripture. It was her armor. When her father's sermons felt like a cage, she would silently recite, "I release myself from the tyranny of dogma." When her mother's anxious glances made her feel small, she would counter, "My worth is absolute." She applied to colleges in secret, her hands trembling as she filled out forms that felt like declarations of war. The acceptance letter came on a Tuesday. It was to a prestigious university with a full scholarship for astrophysics. It was a ticket to the very stars she had been forbidden to reach for. She told them that evening. She did not ask for permission. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice quiet but unshakable. "I've been accepted to study physics." Her father rose, his face a thundercloud. You will not throw your soul away for worldly knowledge. I forbid it." Alice looked at him, and for the first time, she did not see a divine authority. She saw a man, terrified of a world he could not control. "My soul is my own," she said, the words of the declaration flowing through her. "And I am the sovereign of my inner kingdom. You have no authority there." Her mother began to weep, But we love you. I know, Alice said, and this was the hardest part, the pain a sharp blade in her heart. But your love has felt like a cage, and I have to be free. She left the next morning with one suitcase and the weight of their condemnation. The first years were a brutal, lonely kind of freedom. The silence of her small apartment was different from the silence of her home. It was empty, not heavy, but in the lecture halls and the libraries, she felt her soul expand. She learned the mathematics of nebulae, the life cycles of stars, the beautiful, cold, and perfect laws of the universe. Years passed. Dr. Alice Vance became a name whispered with respect in the halls of academia. Her work on stellar nucleosynthesis was groundbreaking. She stood on stages in front of hundreds, explaining the origins of the elements that made up the world, her voice clear and confident. She had not just studied the stars, she had become a mender of them, piecing together the grand story of the cosmos. One evening, standing on the observation deck of the world's most powerful telescope, she looked up at the infinite, shimmering tapestry above. She felt no fear, only a profound sense of kinship. She had escaped the small walled garden and had found her place in an endless universe. Her father had warned her she would lose her soul, but he had been wrong. She hadn't lost it, she had finally, truly found it.